we got this piece of work, we took as a stated fact. We didn't think that it's in a state of flux. It's an ongoing initiative, global initiative, and I think we approached it using that idea is that we're currently in the transition. We're going through it, and we're only going to intensify from there. So we looked at what South Africa is doing currently in terms of mining practices and what that impact looks like. Again, part of the research that we did was look at a CRM demand scenario analysis where we focused on projected impacts for greenhouse gas emissions, water, land use, and energy. And in order to support the transition from a South African perspective, we have to realize that the short to medium term impacts are considerable, specifically for greenhouse gas emissions, land use, water use, and energy. The report reflects and encapsulates the view of the impacts of CRM mining based on historical context, current status, and also future projections. In the report, we presented a unique case, which was the PGM case, specific to South Africa, specific to mining in South Africa, where we see that the demand for PGMs is still quite strong and likely to get stronger due to energy transition requirements. That means that inevitably mining intensity would increase. And what does that look like? That looks like really expanding the mine, going more into exploration to try and bring new assets, or mining the current assets that we have and growing that sort of resource supply. That no doubt will bring about more impacts, right? Whether we're talking about environmental impacts, water use, or land use. However, one thing that's unique is that, specifically to South Africa, is that the mining areas and the impacted areas are all familiar, meaning that we've had a record of mining these areas for years or decades, and so the forecasted change sort of or impact would likely be minimal because we're familiar with the area, familiar with the use of the area. And I think when we look at the other commodities, it sort of resembles a similar picture, and hence why we feel like the report brings a quite balanced view or realistic approach to looking at impacts for CRM mining in South Africa for the energy transition. In the report, we really brought this out through a CRM demand scenario analysis where we looked at the different CRMs needed for the green hydrogen transition, or the energy transition rather, and we modeled what the impacts would be in terms from an energy perspective, from a water use perspective, greenhouse gas emission perspective, and a land use perspective. And what we found is that in the short to medium term, we expect these impacts to increase, mainly because currently the demand for CRMs is so strong that the supply does not meet that demand. We really need to mine a lot more, and so the impacts would undoubtedly increase. While the report was a desktop study that used public research, it was really supplemented by stakeholder engagements, which was done either one-on-one in the initial stage, but then brought together in focus groups through 2 workshops that we had. And really, what we wanted to gain was, apart from using the research background or the resource and the research base for this report, we wanted to be guided and be supplemented by perspectives from on the ground, coming from government, industry, and community advocacy organizations. And essentially what ended up happening was really having a synthesis of both perspectives, both the research base and direct input from stakeholders, which then we coalesced into the report to provide a holistic view on socioeconomic, environmental, and technological impacts within the